Chapter 1. The Omega who didn't flinch. The boardroom was silent, except for the click of Adit Rathor's pen against the mahogany table. He sat at the head, legs spread, posture relaxed, the predator surveying his territory. His tailored black suit did nothing to hide the raw power coiled in his broad shoulders, the restless energy that made lesser men stammer in his presence. Next, he said, voice flat. Board, his HR director, a nervous man named Prakash, stepped forward with a tablet. So the final candidate for the junior analyst position. Soham Sharma, 21, top of his class at St. Xavier's. Adit didn't look up. Why should I care? His recommendations are exceptional, sir, and he's an Omega. That made Adit's eyes lift, sharp, dark, dangerous. A slow, cruel smile curved his lips. An Omega, in my company, you're either very brave or very stupid, Prakash. The candidate insisted, sir. He said he wanted to prove himself. Send him in. Soham Sharma walked into the boardroom with his head held high, despite the tremor in his slender fingers. He was beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare. Large doe eyes the color of warm honey, skin like cream, soft pink lips that seemed perpetually curved into a gentle smile. His frame was delicate, narrow-waisted and small-boned, drowning slightly in an oversized blazer he'd bought from a thrift store. His Omega scent, jasmine and vanilla, was subtle but unmistakable. Adit felt his cock twitch behind his trousers. Fuck, he leaned forward, elbows on the table, and let his gaze drag over the boy like a physical touch. Slow, deliberate, degrading, Soham Sharma. He said the name like it amused him. You're an Omega, sir. Soham's voice was soft but steady. I don't believe that should disqualify me. Doesn't. Adit stood, circling the table, each step deliberate. He was a full foot taller than Soham, built like a predator, and he used every inch of that advantage. But it does make me curious. What makes you think you can survive here? This isn't a charity. I eat soft little things like you for breakfast. Soham's cheeks flushed pink, but he didn't look away. I work hard, sir. I learn fast. I don't give up. Pretty words. Adit stopped directly behind him, close enough that his breath stirred the fine hairs on Soham's neck. Let's see if you can back them up. He reached out and deliberately knocked Soham's folder off the table. Papers scattered everywhere. Oh no, Adit said flatly. Look what you did. Soham's eyes widened. I didn't. Are you talking back to me? Adit's voice dropped to a dangerous purr. On your first day, before you're even hired, Soham bit his lip, that full, soft lower lip that Adit already wanted to sink his teeth into. Then without a word the Omega knelt. He gathered the scattered papers with trembling hands, stacking them neatly, never once looking up. Adit watched him from above, chest tight with something between disgust and arousal. Pathetic, weak, beautiful. Get up, he snapped. Soham rose, clutching the folder to his chest like a shield. Hired, Adit said. Prakash will show you to your desk. Don't make me regret this. He turned away before Soham could respond, but he heard the Omega's soft, relieved exhale. Heard the quiet thank you, so that followed. Adit didn't acknowledge it. But that night, alone in his penthouse, he jerked off to the memory of honey-colored eyes and a trembling lower lip. Chapter 2. The cruel game. The bullying started the next day. It wasn't obvious. Adit was too smart for that. It was 1,000 small cruelties designed to break Soham down piece by piece. Sharma, these reports are a mess. Rewrite them. Sharma, coffee, black. If it's not perfect, you're doing it again. Sharma, stay late. I need someone to organize my files. Sharma, that shirt is too loose. You look unprofessional. Sharma, you're too slow. Are all Omegas this useless? Soham took it all. He never cried, never complained, never ran to HR. He just nodded, apologized, and tried harder. He stayed until midnight, rewriting reports that had been fine the first time. He brought Adit coffee 6 times before it was finally acceptable. He showed up the next morning with a fitted shirt that hugged his narrow waist, and Adit had to excuse himself to the bathroom to calm his erection. The worst part was Soham's kindness. Even when Adit was cruel, Soham was gentle. He smiled at the janitor. He brought pastries for the interns. He helped the older secretary with her computer. He left a small potted succulent on his desk because it makes the space feel happier. Adit wanted to destroy that softness. To corrupt it, own it. One evening, 3 weeks into Soham's employment, Adit called him into his office. It was past midnight. The building was empty. Soham entered with tired eyes and a brave smile. You wanted to see me, sir? Adit didn't look up from his laptop. Lock the door. You deaf, lock the door. Soham hesitated, then turned the lock with a soft click. He stood by the door, hands clasped in front of him, looking small and vulnerable in the dim light. Come here. Soham walked to the desk. Adit finally looked up, and his eyes were dark, hungry in a way that made Soham's Omega instincts scream danger. Been working very hard, Adit said, voice low. I think you deserve a reward. I don't understand, sir. Adit leaned back in his chair, spreading his legs. The bulge in his trousers was impossible to miss. You understand. Get on your knees. Soham's face went pale, then red. Sir, I'm not. That's not. You want to keep your job, don't you? Adit's voice was ice. You want to prove that Omegas belong here? Then prove it. Show me how useful you can be. Tears welled in Soham's honey eyes. His hands shook, but he didn't run. He sank to his knees. And Adit felt a surge of triumph so dark it scared even him. Chapter 2. The breaking. Soham's knees ached against the marble floor. His hands trembled as they hovered over Adit's belt, fingers barely brushing the cold metal buckle. The alpha above him smelled like sandalwood and smoke, overwhelming, suffocating, intoxicating. It made Soham's head spin, made his Omega instincts war between submit and flee. Keep me waiting, little Omega. Adit's voice was a lazy drawl, but there was steel beneath it. I'm not a patient man. Soham's fingers fumbled with the buckle. It took 3 tries before it came undone. The zipper followed, loud in the silent office. And then Adit's cock sprang free, thick, heavy, impossibly long, already half-hard and twitching with anticipation. Soham's breath caught. His eyes went wide. He had never seen anything so large. It was monstrous, veined, the head a deep angry red. It would never fit. It would tear him apart. Scared, Adit's hand fisted in Soham's soft hair, yanking his head back. Good, fear keeps you obedient. Now open your mouth. Soham's lips parted. A single tear slipped down his cheek. Adit guided himself forward, dragging the head across Soham's trembling lips, smearing precum across the pink flesh. Look at me, he commanded. I want to see your eyes when you take me. Soham looked up, honey meeting obsidian, and Adit thrust inside. The gag reflex was immediate. Soham choked, hands flying up to push against Adit's thighs, but the alpha held him in place, fucking his throat with brutal, shallow pumps. Breathe through your nose, Adit growled. Take it, take all of it. Soham's eyes streamed tears. His throat burned, but he obeyed because he had no choice, because he needed this job, because some dark part of him wanted to be broken by this man. Adit fucked his mouth for what felt like hours. He used Soham's throat like a toy, pulling out only to slap his cock against the Omega's tongue before thrusting deeper. He made Soham gag, made him drool, made him a mess of tears and spit and ruined makeup. When he finally came, it was down Soham's throat, hot and thick and demanding to be swallowed. Waste a drop, Adit snarled. Soham swallowed, every single drop. When Adit pulled out, Soham collapsed forward, catching himself on his palms, coughing and gasping for air. His lips were swollen, his throat felt raw. His dignity lay in pieces on the floor beside him. Adit zipped up, adjusted his belt, and sat back in his chair like nothing had happened. You can go now, he said, already turning back to his laptop. Be here tomorrow at 7 a.m. sharp, don't be late. Soham scrambled to his feet, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and fled. He made it to the bathroom before he broke down, sobbing. Chapter 3. The midnight incident. 3 months passed. 3 months of Soham being called into the office after hours. 3 months of sore knees, bruised throat, and a growing numbness in his chest. 3 months of Adit's cruelty, the verbal abuse during the day, the sexual demands at night, the way the alpha treated him like a thing rather than a person. But Soham stayed. He stayed because the pay was good, because his mother needed her medication, because his younger sister's school fees were due, because he had no one else to turn to, and somewhere buried deep beneath the fear and shame, he stayed because sometimes, in the quiet moments after Adit used him, the alpha would look at him with something other than contempt. It was fleeting. Barely a second, but Soham saw it. Or maybe I'm just imagining things to make this bearable. Then came the night of the storm. It was past 2 a.m. Mumbai was being battered by monsoon rains so fierce that the power flickered constantly. Soham had been working late again and was gathering his things to leave when the lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed the office. Soham's heart hammered. He fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight, but the beam was weak, casting long shadows that made everything worse. The thunder roared overhead, shaking the building. He was terrified of storms, had been since childhood. Get it together. Grown man just walked to the elevator, but his legs wouldn't move, and then he heard it, a sound from the hallway. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, approaching. Hello, Soham's voice cracked. Is someone there? The footsteps stopped outside his cubicle. A flashlight clicked on, blinding him. Sharma, Adit's voice rough with irritation. What the hell are you still doing here? Soham let out a shaky breath of relief. I was finishing the quarterly reports, sir. The storm, I was about to leave. You're shaking. I'm fine, you're shaking. Adit stepped closer, his flashlight illuminating Soham's pale face, his wide eyes, his trembling hands. The alpha's expression shifted, something unreadable passing across his features. Are you afraid of the storm? No, liar. Soham flinched as another crack of thunder shook the building. A small, pathetic whimper escaped his lips before he could stop it. Adit was silent for a long moment. Then unexpectedly he said, come with me. Penthouse is 5 minutes away. You can't go home in this weather. The roads will be flooded. You'll stay there tonight. I can't. That wasn't a request, Sharma. The penthouse was everything Soham expected, cold, modern, immaculate, and lifeless. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the rain lashing against the city. The furniture was all black and white, expensive but impersonal. No photos, no plants, no signs that anyone actually lived here. Adit tossed him a towel. Dry off, there's a guest room down the hall, don't touch anything. Soham caught the towel, clutching it to his chest. Thank you, sir. Adit grunted and disappeared into what Soham assumed was the master bedroom. Soham stood alone in the vast, silent penthouse. The storm raged outside, but inside there was only the hum of the AC and the distant sound of rain against glass. He changed into an oversized t-shirt he found in the guest room. It smelled like Adit, sandalwood and smoke, and lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Why did he bring me here? He could have just let me take an Uber. He doesn't care about me. He's made that clear, so why? Soham didn't sleep. He lay awake, listening to the storm, feeling something shift in the air between them. and in the other room, Adit Rassel, the cold, ruthless billionaire who had never cared for anyone, lay awake too, haunted by the image of honey-colored eyes filled with tears. Chapter 4. The next morning, Soham woke to the smell of coffee. He padded out of the guest room, still wearing Adit's shirt, and found the alpha in the kitchen, barefoot and shirtless, making breakfast. The sight made Soham's breath catch. Adit was beautiful. All corded muscle, broad shoulders, and tan skin stretched over a body built for violence. A thin line of hair trailed from his chest down to the waistband of his sweatpants. His hair was messy, still damp from a shower. He looked human. Up. Adit didn't turn around. Eat, I'll drive you home after. Soham sat at the island, watching as Adit slid a plate of eggs and toast toward him. You cooked. Don't look so surprised. I'm not a complete monster. Soham picked up the fork, taking a small bite. It was good, really good. Thank you, sir. Adit, what? When we're not at work, call me Adit. Soham's heart stuttered. Okay, Adit. They ate in silence. It was the most peaceful moment Soham had experienced in months. For a brief, fragile moment, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. He was wrong. The change happened slowly, then all at once. Over the following weeks, Adit's behavior shifted. He was still demanding, still cruel during work hours, but there were moments, a lingering glance, a gentle touch, a rare smile that made Soham's heart ache with hope. They started having lunch together. Adit would order food and insist Soham eat with him. He started driving Soham home, claiming it was on the way. He bought Soham a new coat when he noticed the old one was torn. Soham fell hard. He fell for the man who had broken him. He fell for the alpha who had used him. He fell for the monster who sometimes showed him kindness, and Adit fell too, though he didn't recognize it. All he knew was that his chest tightened when Soham smiled, that he couldn't stop thinking about honey-colored eyes. That the thought of anyone else touching his omega made him want to commit murder. His omega, when had Soham become his? The breaking point came on a Friday night. Adit had been in a meeting with a rival businessman, a greasy alpha named Vikram Malhotra, who had made a crude comment about the pretty little omega he'd seen in the office. Something in Adit's mind snapped. He ended the meeting early, stormed through the office, and found Soham at his desk, laughing at something on his phone. Come, Adit said, voice tight. Soham looked up, startled. Sir, I'm not done with now. Soham followed, confused but obedient. Adit led him to the private elevator, punched the button for the penthouse, and didn't speak until the doors closed. Mine, Adit said, voice low and dangerous. Say it. I what? Adit spun, pinning Soham against the elevator wall. His body pressed against the omegas, hard and hot and desperate. Say you're mine. Soham's breath came in short gasps. Adit, you're scaring me. Good. Adit's hand slid down, gripping Soham's hip hard enough to bruise. Because I'm scared too. I've never felt like this. I don't know what to do with it, but I know I can't let you go. I won't. His mouth crashed down on Soham's. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, consuming. Adit kissed him like he was drowning and Soham was air. His tongue forced past Soham's lips, tasting, claiming, owning. Soham moaned into the kiss, hands fisting in Adit's shirt. The elevator doors opened. Adit carried him to the bedroom. Chapter 5. The breaking. Adit laid Soham down on the silk sheets with a gentleness that surprised them both. For a moment he just looked at the flushed cheeks, the parted lips, the way Soham's chest rose and fell with quick, shallow breaths. So beautiful, Adit murmured almost to himself. It hurts. Soham reached up, touching Adit's cheek. Then stop hurting. Adit couldn't. The hunger inside him was too wild, too raw. He had spent years building walls around his heart, and now Soham had torn them down without even trying. The vulnerability terrified him, and terror for Adit Rathor always turned to rage. He grabbed Soham's wrists, pinning them above his head. I'm going to fuck you now, he said, voice rough, and I'm not going to be gentle. Adit, you wanted this. He ripped Soham's shirt open, buttons scattering across the floor. You wanted me. So take me. He didn't prepare him. He didn't ask. He flipped Soham onto his stomach, yanked his pants down, and pushed inside with one brutal thrust. Soham screamed. It was too much, too big, too dry, too sudden. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and blinding. He clawed at the sheets, sobbing, begging for Adit to stop. But Adit couldn't hear. He was lost in the heat, the tightness, the primal satisfaction of claiming what was his. He fucked Soham like a man possessed, each thrust deeper and harder than the last, chasing his own pleasure without thought for the omega beneath him. Mine, he growled, biting down on Soham's shoulder. Mine. Soham's tears soaked the pillow. By the time Adit finished, spent and shaking, Soham had gone silent. His body was limp, marked with bruises and bite marks. Blood trickled down his thighs. Adit pulled out and saw the red. Reality crashed into him like a freight train. Soham, his voice cracked. Soham, look at me. But Soham wouldn't look at him. His eyes were open, staring at nothing, glassy and empty. He was trembling, not from pleasure, but from shock. Adit reached for him. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Soham flinched away. The movement was small, barely a shift, but it cut deeper than any knife. Don't, Soham whispered. Please. Don't touch me. Adit's world shattered. The next morning, Soham was gone. He had taken nothing but the clothes on his back. His desk was cleaned out. His phone was disconnected. His apartment was empty. Adit stood in the middle of Soham's bare studio apartment, surrounded by silence, and felt something he had never felt before. Heartbreak. He fell to his knees. He didn't know yet that Soham carried his children. He didn't know that the search would take 6 years. He only knew that he had destroyed the only good thing in his life, and he would spend the rest of it trying to get it back. Chapter 6. 6 years of silence. At it, Rathel became a ghost. Not in the literal sense, his body still moved through the world, attended meetings, signed contracts, expanded his empire. But the man who had once been feared and respected was hollow. A shell, a machine going through the motions. The first year he searched. He hired the best private investigators in India. He tracked every lead, every sighting, every whisper of a young Omega with honey-colored eyes. He flew to Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, Bangalore. He stood in crowded markets and train stations, scanning faces, hopping nothing. The second year he drank. Whiskey became breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He stopped going to the office. His empire ran itself, but barely. His board threatened to remove him. He told them to fuck off. The third year he raged. He destroyed his penthouse, punched holes in walls, shattered mirrors, overturned furniture. He screamed until his throat bled. He fired everyone who had ever been cruel to Soham, as if that could undo what he had done. The fourth year he grieved. He accepted that Soham might be dead, that he might never know what happened to the Omega he loved, that his children, if they existed, would grow up never knowing their father. He visited a temple for the first time in his life. He knelt and prayed to a god he didn't believe in. Please, let him be alive, let them be alive. I'll do anything. The fifth year he changed. He started therapy. He sold his most aggressive holdings. He established a foundation for single parents and abandoned Omegas. He learned to cook, really cook, because Soham had once complimented his eggs. He became someone Soham might have been proud of, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough until he found them. Chapter 7. The hospital. The sixth year brought Adit to a small hospital in Pune. A routine visit. His foundation was donating a new pediatric wing. He was supposed to cut a ribbon, shake hands, smile for photos. Standard billionaire philanthropy. He hated every second of it. The hospital was underfunded, overcrowded, and smelled of antiseptic and despair. Children ran through the hallways, some laughing, some crying. Parents sat on hard plastic chairs with hollow eyes. Adit's heart ached. This could have been Soham, sitting in a chair like this, holding our child alone. He finished the ceremony as quickly as possible and was heading toward the exit when he saw her, a little girl. She was sitting on a bench in the courtyard, legs swinging, humming to herself. She had dark curly hair tied in 2 messy pigtails, a gap-toothed smile, and eyes that were large and honey-colored. Soham's eyes. Adit stopped breathing. The girl looked up, noticing the tall stranger staring at her. She tilted her head, curious and unafraid. "Hello, mister, are you lost?" Her voice was small and sweet, carrying a lilt that reminded him of Soham's gentle tone. Adit's legs moved before his brain could catch up. He walked toward her, heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He knelt in front of her, bringing himself to her eye level. "What's your name?" he asked, voice hoarse. The girl smiled, revealing the gap in her teeth. "I'm Arohi Sharma. I'm 5 years old." "Well, almost 6. My birthday is next month." Arohi Sharma, his daughter. Adit's vision blurred. He blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in front of her. "That's a beautiful name, Arohi. It suits you." "Thank you." She swung her legs again. "Are you a doctor? You look like a doctor, but fancier." "No, I'm not a doctor. I'm just visiting." Oh, she seemed to accept this easily. "Do you want to see my brother? He's inside. He's sick, but he's getting better." "Mama says he's very brave." Adit's heart clenched. "Brother, a son. I would love to meet your brother," he said, barely keeping his voice steady. "And your mama, is she here?" "Mama is with Arav right now. She's always with Arav. She says I'm big enough to play by myself for a little while." His expression turned serious. "But I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." Adit smiled, a real smile, the first in 6 years. "You're right, you shouldn't, but I promise I'm safe. My name is Adit." "Arohi Sharma," she repeated, offering her tiny hand with surprising formality. "Nice to meet you, Adit." He took her hand, so small and fragile in his, and felt tears prick at his eyes again. "I have a daughter. I have a son. And somewhere inside that hospital is the Omega I destroyed. Please, Soham, let me fix this." Arohi led him through the hospital corridors, chattering about her favorite cartoons, the stray cat she fed behind their apartment, and how her brother was the best brother in the whole world. Adit listened to every word, memorizing them like sacred texts. They stopped outside a private room. Private only because Arohi had insisted on showing him, and no nurse had the heart to stop the adorable little girl. Through the glass window, Adit saw him. A small boy, maybe 5 or 6, lying in a hospital bed. He had tubes in his arms and a pale complexion, but his face was peaceful in sleep. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His features were delicate, soft, beautiful. "Mine," Adit thought. "He looks like me." And then he saw the figure sitting beside the bed. Soham. He was thinner. Exhaustion had carved shadows under his eyes and hollowed his cheeks. His clothes were worn and faded, a simple kurta that had been washed too many times. His hair was longer, tied back in a messy bun, with streaks of grey that hadn't been there 6 years ago. He looked broken, but he was still the most beautiful thing Adit had ever seen. Adit's hand pressed against the glass. "Soham," he whispered. As if hearing his name, Soham stirred. He turned toward the door, eyes still heavy with fatigue, and froze. Their eyes met through the window. Honey met obsidian. 6 years of silence, grief, and longing collapsed into a single moment. Soham's face went pale, his lips parted, his hands trembled, and then he stood, walked to the door, and stepped into the hallway. Adit. His voice was barely a whisper. How did you find me? I found Arohi, Adit said, voice cracking. In the courtyard. She has your eyes. Soham's face crumpled. Tears spilled down his cheeks. Please don't take them from me. I know you can. You have the money, the power, but they're all I have. Please, Soham. Adit stepped forward, hands raised, palms open. I'm not here to take them. I'm here to beg. Beg, forgive me. Soham shook his head, backing away. I can't do this. Not here, not now. Arav is sick. He needs surgery we can't afford, and I've been working 3 jobs, and I'm so tired, Adit. I'm so tired. Pay for everything. Don't want your money, then take my heart. Adit's voice broke. Take my soul. Take everything I have. Just let me be part of their lives. Let me be part of your life. I've changed, Soham. I've spent 6 years becoming someone you might be able to love. Please, give me a chance to prove it. Soham stared at him, tears streaming, chest heaving, and then quietly he said, Arav needs a bone marrow transplant. He's been on the waiting list for months. There's no match. Adit didn't hesitate. Test me. What? His father, test me. If I'm a match, I'll donate. No strings attached. I'll sign over half my wealth. I'll leave the country. Whatever you want, just let me save our son. Soham's legs gave out. He collapsed against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the cold hospital floor, sobbing into his hands. Adit knelt beside him. He didn't touch. He had learned that lesson. He just stayed close, a silent presence, waiting. After a long moment, Soham looked up. If you're a match, he said, voice raw, you can meet them, properly, but slowly. And if you hurt them, if you hurt me again, I will disappear so completely that not even your money will find me. I understand. You sleep on the couch. Adit's lips twitched. I'll sleep on the floor if you ask me to. Soham let out a wet, broken laugh. Don't make promises you can't keep, billionaire. Kept worse promises for less, Adit said softly. For you, I'll keep them all. Chapter 8. The results came back 3 days later. Adit was a perfect match. Chapter 9. The transplant. The surgery was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Adit arrived at the hospital at 5 a.m., alone, wearing simple clothes. No suits, no entourage. No displays of wealth. He had learned that Soham didn't trust those things. Soham trusted actions. He found Soham already in the waiting room, clutching a cold cup of coffee, eyes red from sleepless nights. Arohi was curled up on the plastic chairs beside him, wrapped in a too small blanket, her thumb in her mouth. Early, Soham said, voice flat. So are you. Silence. Adit sat down across from him, keeping distance. He didn't push. He didn't speak. He just sat there, a solid presence, waiting. After a long moment, Soham spoke. Arav asked about you last night. Adit's heart stopped. He did. I told him you were a kind man who was going to help him get better. He asked if you were his papa. What did you say? Soham's jaw tightened. I said, maybe, if he wanted you to be. Adit's eyes burned. He looked down at his hands, blinking rapidly. Thank you, that means more than you know. I didn't do it for you. I did it for him, I know. A nurse appeared, clipboard in hand. Mr. Rathel, we're ready for you. Adit stood. He looked at Soham, then at Arohi, then back at Soham. I'll give him my bone marrow, he said quietly. And I'll give him my heart. Both of them are his, both of them are yours, always. He walked away before Soham could respond. The surgery was successful. Adit woke up groggy, sore, with a bandage on his hip where the marrow had been extracted. The first thing he saw was Arohi's face, hovering over him, her honey-colored eyes wide with curiosity. Papa, she whispered. Adit's breath caught. What did you call me? Mama said you might be my papa. Are you? He reached out with a shaky hand, brushing a curl from her face. If you want me to be, baby, I would be honored to be your papa. Arohi thought about this for a moment, then nodded seriously. Okay, but you have to buy me ice cream. Adit laughed, a real laugh, rusty from disuse. I'll buy you an ice cream factory. Papa, she said again, testing the word. Then she smiled, gap-toothed and brilliant, and climbed onto the bed to hug him. Adit held his daughter for the first time and wept. Chapter 10. Learning to be a father the first month was hard. Arav was slow to trust. He was a quiet, observant child, with his father's dark eyes and his mother's gentle soul. He watched Adit from across the room, analyzing, judging, deciding. Adit didn't push. He came to the hospital every day. He brought books and toys and coloring supplies. He read to Arav until his voice went hoarse. He sat through hours of silence, just being present, letting the boy get used to him. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday. Arav was having a bad day, fever, pain, frustration. He threw his food tray across the room and burst into tears. The nurse tried to calm him, but nothing worked. Adit walked in, saw the mess, and sat down on the floor. Hey champ, he said softly. I used to throw things too. When I was your age, I threw a whole plate of biryani at my nanny. Arav sniffled, looking at him with red-rimmed eyes. Why? Because I was scared and angry, and I didn't know how to say it. Adit picked up a piece of broken plate. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be angry. Throwing things won't make the scary feelings go away. You know what helps? What? Talking, or drawing, or just sitting with someone who loves you. He looked at Arav with all the tenderness he had. I love you, Arav. I know I'm new, and I know I don't deserve your trust yet, but I love you, and I'm not going anywhere. Arav stared at him for a long moment, then he held out his arms. Adit gathered his son into his embrace, holding him carefully, mindful of the tubes and wires. He felt the small body shake with sobs, and he held tighter, promising silently to never let go. From the doorway, Soham watched with tears streaming down his face. Chapter 11. The first night home 3 months later, Arav was discharged. Adit had prepared everything. His penthouse had been transformed, the cold, minimalist space now filled with colorful rugs, toys scattered across the floor, children's drawings taped to the walls. There was a playroom, a garden with a swing set, and a kitchen stocked with every food Soham had ever mentioned liking. Soham stood in the doorway speechless. "You did all this?" he asked. "I had help," Adit admitted. He picked the colors. She said pink was the best color ever. I couldn't argue. Soham laughed, a real laugh, the first Adit had heard in 6 years. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. That night, they put the children to bed together. He demanded 2 bedtime stories. Arav fell asleep halfway through the first one, his small hand clutching Adit's finger. Adit stood in the doorway watching them sleep. "Thank you," Soham said quietly from behind him. Adit turned. "For what?" "For not giving up, for coming back, for being here." Soham's voice trembled. "I was so scared, Adit. I was so scared of raising them alone, of failing them, of..." "Soham." Adit stepped closer, careful, always careful now. "You didn't fail them. You raised 2 incredible children. Alone, with no help. You are the strongest person I have ever met." Soham's lips quivered. "I'm tired, Adit. I'm so tired." "Then rest." Adit opened his arms, leaving the choice to him. "I'll watch over them. I'll watch over you. Just rest." Soham hesitated, then he stepped into Adit's arms. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a start. Chapter 12. The courtship. Adit courted Soham like a man given a second chance at life. He brought him coffee every morning, made exactly the way Soham liked it, with a dash of cinnamon and just a spoonful of sugar. He left notes in Arav's lunchbox, little drawings and jokes that made the boy giggle. He took Arohi to dance class every Saturday, sitting through endless recitals with a proud smile. He cooked dinner every night, learning Soham's favorite recipes by heart. He rubbed Soham's feet when they ached from long days at work. He sat with him in silence when the memories got too heavy, and he never pushed. He waited for Soham to come to him. It happened on a quiet Sunday evening. The children were asleep, the house was still. Soham found Adit on the balcony, staring at the stars, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. "You don't drink anymore," Soham observed. "I stopped after you left. It reminded me of how I failed you." Soham sat down beside him. "You didn't fail me, Adit. You hurt me." "There's a difference there." "Yes." Soham took a breath. "Failure means you stopped trying. You never stopped trying. You searched for 6 years. You changed. You became someone I could trust again." Adit turned to look at him. "Do you trust me?" Soham held his gaze. "I'm learning to. That's more than I deserve. Maybe." Soham reached out, taking Adit's hand. "But I'm giving it to you anyway." Adit's breath caught. "Soham, kiss me." "What?" "Kiss me, Adit, properly, like you mean it." Adit didn't need to be told twice. He cupped Soham's face in his hands, tilting his head up, and kissed him. It was soft, tender, reverent, nothing like the brutal claiming of 6 years ago. It was an apology, a promise, a prayer. Soham melted into him, tears sliding down his cheeks. When they broke apart, foreheads pressed together, Soham whispered, "I never stopped loving you. I hated myself for it, but I never stopped." "Don't deserve you," Adit said, voice raw. "Probably not." Soham smiled through his tears. "But I'm choosing you anyway." 13. The wedding. They married 6 months later. It was a small ceremony, just the 4 of them on a beach at sunset. Arohi was the flower girl, throwing petals with wild abandon. Arav was the ring bearer, walking down the aisle with solemn determination. Soham wore a simple white kurta, flowers woven into his hair. Adit wore a traditional sherwani, his eyes never leaving his omega. They wrote their own vows. Adit went first, his voice shaking. "Soham, I was a monster when I met you. I was cruel, selfish, and blind. I hurt you in ways I will regret for the rest of my life. But you showed me that I could be more. You showed me that love wasn't weakness. You gave me children I didn't deserve and a second chance I hadn't earned. I promised to spend every day of the rest of my life being worthy of you. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you with everything I have. You are my heart, Soham, my home, my everything." Soham was crying before Adit finished. He took a shaky breath and began. "Adit, when I met you, I was afraid. You were overwhelming, intense, terrifying. But somewhere beneath all that darkness, I saw light. I saw someone who was lonely, who didn't know how to love, who needed someone to show him the way. I left because I was scared. I raised our children alone because I thought I was protecting them. But I was wrong. You are not the man you were. You are a father, a partner, a good man. And I am proud to stand beside you today. I promise to trust you, to lean on you, and to let you love me. I promise to never run again." Adit pulled him close, kissing him deeply as the children cheered and the sun dipped below the horizon. Chapter 14. Year later, Soham discovered he was pregnant. He was terrified. The first pregnancy had been traumatic, filled with fear and loneliness, but this time was different. This time he had Adit, who held his hair back during morning sickness, who massaged his swollen feet, who talked to his belly every night, telling their unborn daughter stories about how much she was already loved. The birth was easier than the first. Soham was surrounded by family, Adit holding his hand, Arohi and Arav waiting excitedly in the hallway. When the baby girl was placed in his arms, Soham wept. "She's perfect," he whispered. Adit leaned over, pressing a kiss to Soham's forehead. "She has your eyes and your stubbornness. She fought the whole way out." Adit laughed, tears streaming down his face. "What should we name her?" Soham looked down at their daughter, tiny, perfect, a symbol of their new beginning. "Ananta," he said softly. "It means infinite, endless, because our love for her is endless." Adit's breath caught. "Ananta, it's beautiful." Ananta Rasul Sharma came into the world surrounded by love, her father's arms wrapped around her mother, her siblings pressing close to see their baby sister. The mansion that had once been a prison was now a home. And the man who had once been a monster had finally become the father, the husband, the alpha he was always meant to be. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Rasul Sharma household was chaos, beautiful, wonderful, perfect chaos. Arav, now 11, was a budding artist, his room covered in paintings and sketches. He was quiet and thoughtful like his mother, but with his father's fierce protectiveness. Arohi, 10, was a whirlwind of energy, dance, gymnastics, drama club. She had inherited Adit's charisma and Soham's heart, a combination that made her unstoppable. And Ananta, 5 years old, was the queen of the household. She had her parents wrapped around her tiny finger, her siblings her loyal subjects, and the entire world at her feet. Soham sat on the porch, watching his children play in the garden. Adit came up behind him, wrapping his arms around his waist, pressing a kiss to his neck. "Happy," Adit murmured. Soham leaned back into him, a contented sigh escaping his lips. "Happier than I ever thought I could be, even with the chaos, especially with the chaos." Adit smiled, pressing another kiss to Soham's temple. "I love you, I love our family, I love our life." Soham turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had once been his tormentor, then his savior, then his partner. "Love you too," he said. "Thank you for never giving up on us." Adit cupped his face, thumbs brushing away the tears that had started to fall. "Thank you for giving me a second chance." They kissed, soft and sweet, as their children's laughter filled the air. In the distance, Ananta shouted, "Papa, Mama, come push me on the swing." Adit pulled back, grinning. "Coming, my little infinity." Soham laughed, taking his hand, and together they walked toward their children, their future, their happily ever after, the end.